America's new proposal is extremely dangerous. Raghuram Rajan issues a major warning to India. Just imagine. You wake up one morning to find that India's biggest strength, its service sector, the very engine that made India a global brand, is suddenly on the verge of collapse. Millions of jobs are at risk, dollar inflows are drying up, and foreign clients are beginning to pull away from Indian firms. Now imagine this isn't caused by an economic crisis or a technological failure, but by new foreign law. This isn't a fantasy, it's a serious possibility. And that's exactly what Raghuram Rajan has warned about. Raghuram Rajan, the man who once shielded India's economy from the 2008 global financial crisis, is sounding the alarm again. But this time, the danger is deeper because it doesn't come from a market crash. It comes from policy itself, America's proposed Hire Act. And according to Rajan, this act could be an economic time bomb for countries like India, one that explodes slowly but leaves long-lasting damage. Rajan explains that the Hire Act, short for Help in Sourcing and Repatriating Employment Act, poses a direct threat to India's service industry, IT sector, and global talent chain. If passed, this law would allow the US to impose tariffs or penalties on every outsourced service that originates from countries like India. In other words, the very digital revolution that made India the back-office capital of the world could now be at risk. He warned that this proposal is far more dangerous than the earlier hikes in H-1B visa fees. While those fees added a few $1,000s in costs, the Hire Act could impact the entire sector. It's a move that would not only hurt Indian companies but also damage American firms that depend heavily on Indian talent and outsourcing efficiency. India's service sector, which includes AT, consulting, finance, logistics, and healthcare, exports billions of dollars every year. It's the SAM sector that kept India's economy stable even during global recessions. When factories worldwide were shutting down, India's offices were working online. But if the US imposes tariffs on these services, Indian companies will face a double blow: loss of access to the American market and a slowdown in foreign investment. Raghuram Rajan warns, our concern isn't about tariffs on goods, but tariffs on services. He adds that if America starts treating services the same way it treats goods from China or Mexico, the impact could last for years. It would be a shock similar to India's 1991 foreign currency crisis, except this time, the crisis would be digital. The logic behind the Hire Act is that jobs outsourced to countries like India should be brought back to the US, hence the term repatriating employment. But Rajan argues this policy could backfire badly. If American companies stop outsourcing to India, their costs will skyrocket. Tasks that currently cost $20 per hour in India could cost $100 per hour in the US. Rajan also points out that India is already suffering from America's rising tariffs. The US has imposed duties of up to 50% on Indian textiles, engineering goods, and chemicals, even higher than the 47% tariffs on China. This has hit India's small and medium enterprises hard, especially those that export during the US holiday season. Now, if the SAM policy extends to the service sector, India's dollar inflows could take a severe hit. Major Indian IT companies like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, and HCL provide back-end processing and support services to American firms. If tariffs are levied on these services, US clients may start cutting contracts with Indian providers. That would directly impact the growth of India's AT industry, which today is valued at over $250 billion. Rajan made it clear that India must immediately raise this issue in diplomatic talks with the US. He believes India should demand a tariff discount to protect its labor-intensive industries and service sector. If India doesn't act now, he warned, we could lose our competitive edge within the next 5 years. Rajan also acknowledged that the recent hike in H-1B visa fees will have only a limited effect. Indian companies no longer depend heavily on US visas. Technology and virtual networks have changed the game. Work now happens wherever talent exists, and that talent is in India. He pointed out that the increase in H-1B costs might actually push Indian firms to hire US-educated local graduates directly within America. At the same time, India's global capability centers, GCCs, are rapidly expanding. Giants like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are now setting up large operational hubs in India, which is creating more high-skill jobs within the country. Rajan said, this transformation is both an opportunity and a challenge for India. For example, Microsoft once brought hundreds of Indian engineers to the US every year through H-1B visas. Now, the same work is handled remotely from Hyderabad and Bangalore offices. This proves that if India continues to strengthen its digital ecosystem, global companies will naturally treat India as their global backend. But then comes the real concern. If this shift is so beneficial, why is it still a threat? The danger lies beyond tariffs. This policy marks a rise in economic nationalism, where every nation wants to keep its jobs, capital, and data within its own borders. And that's where the challenge begins for India, because India's greatest strength lies in its global connectivity. Rajan warned that both the US and Europe are now building digital walls. New taxes are being imposed on data transfers, cloud services, and work sharing. This is the kind of digital barrier that could, in the future, block global service exports altogether. If that happens, it will directly hit India's GDP growth, since the service sector contributes more than 55% to India's total GDP. He also emphasized that India must focus on reskilling its workforce so that, if policies like the Hire Act are implemented, Indian youth have strong domestic alternatives. We have the world's largest young workforce, Rajan said, but we must ensure they are prepared for a changing global landscape. Rajan suggested that India should now evolve its Digital India policy into Global Digital India, meaning the country should think on an international scale, not just local. If India strengthens its tech sector through innovation, research, and cloud-based services, then no tariff will be able to stop its growth. He further noted that the potential impact of America's new policy wouldn't be limited to India alone. Countries like Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Bangladesh, which also earn billions from outsourcing, would be hit too. If the US imposes tariffs on all of them, it could trigger a global service sector trade war, and India, being the largest service exporter among them, would suffer the most. Rajan urged that India must act proactively, not reactively. Instead of waiting for the US to move first, India should already be crafting its counter-strategy. India needs to prioritize its service sector in trade negotiations, he said. Just as we sign free trade agreements for goods, we now need FTAs specifically for services. Rajan's message isn't just for policymakers. It's also a warning for every Indian youth chasing a global dream. If this law comes into effect, it could shut the doors for millions of Indians aspiring to work in the US or Europe, whether through H-1B visas or outsourcing opportunities. He said that India must strengthen its domestic sector to such an extent that even if external shocks come from abroad, the economy remains stable. We need to retain our data, our networks, and our talent within the country, Rajan emphasized. This interview by Raghuram Rajan is not just a warning, but also a blueprint for the future. He outlined how every US policy could bring both risk and opportunity for India. If India takes the right steps, adopts a firm stance in tariff negotiations, encourages global companies to expand their base within India, and promotes innovation in the service sector, then this crisis could actually become a springboard for India's next big leap. However, Rajan cautioned that if India takes this situation lightly, history could repeat itself, just like what once happened with the textile and leather industries, where India was once a global leader, but gradually fell behind due to policy imbalances and foreign pressures.
If our video has taught you something new, do not forget to like and share this video so that this information can reach others as well. Your likes and shares are a source of inspiration for us. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let us know in the comments. It will be our honor to answer your questions and listen to suggestions. And yes, if you like our content, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you stay connected with every new story. Thank you. GRT Business YouTube channel sources news from various news agencies, opinion polls, and other public sources. We try to ensure that every report and summary is accurate and verified, but we are not responsible for any dispute or error. Our aim is only to provide you with accurate information.